All right, time once again for another edition of Catching Up with Tommy Mac podcast here on 1010XL's podcast platform at 1010XL.com, 1010XL app, live on Facebook and shared all over podcast land, wherever that may be, where you watch and listen to your favorite podcast. You will find Catching Up there. And, of course, we put it on the 1010XL YouTube channel and share it all over the social media world as well. Brought to my friends at Team Tommy Mac. Honored to represent each and every one of them. We'll talk about them as we get on through the show. Of course, lots going on today. The franchise tag deadline at 4 o'clock Eastern. We'll see what happens here in Jacksonville. We'll get into that. Jason Kelce retires. Foley Fatukasi being let go. We'll talk all about that. We'll take a look around the NFL, deals, tags, etc. We'll talk, of course, about our hometown team. And looking forward to what happens at some point today. But before I start the show, I want to say good morning to Grammage. And then before I start the show, I want to say something else. Grammage, how are you, buddy? Good morning to you.
Good morning, sir. Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday to you as well. You got the Carolina Tar Heel shirt on. Big night tonight in hoops.
Indeed.
Who's number one team in the country? I know who's number one team on the women's side. South Carolina. Did they win the other night to go undefeated the whole way? They were had undefeated season on the line.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, we don't talk much about women's hoops, but I saw that on the treadmill yesterday while I was working out.
Number one has been UConn most of the year. Okay. But they lost to Creighton like a week or two ago, so I don't know if they're still number one.
If the football teams, I just thought of this, if they ever combined a 2 or 4, would the basketball just stay as is, like the other sports, or do they have to change too?
There's been a lot of talk about that.
Yeah.
Most people are saying that there's no reason the other sports can't just stay the same.
Just stay the same. Yeah, I kind of feel, yeah.
There's nothing that's been like official saying like that will happen.
Right.
But most people are like college basketball in terms of, there's problems in college basketball, but in terms of like the competitive nature of the sport is just fine. There's really nothing wrong with the way it works now. There's no reason to change it. Baseball, soccer.
Yeah. And you don't want to change your rivalries, which they don't in football. So.
And the travel part of it too.
Yep.
Is a factor. It's not a huge deal when the Big Ten becomes one big thing. It's not a huge deal for USC one time during a football season to go play Rutgers.
Right.
But for the softball team to go.
Totally.
That doesn't make any sense.
Whatever.
Right.
Yeah, water polo.
Well, because first the budget.
Stay on the West Coast.
Because the budget's obviously not the same.
Right. No,
and then also in those sports, you play so many more games too.
Right.
That you're asking that travel cost to be even higher than it would be in football because they play all the time.
Right.
Softball plays like 3 games a week.
You might have to stay there too, like on the East Coast for a little bit. I used to interview Bob Goen, who was the Florida State AD. When he retired. I used to interview him every week. He was great. God rest his soul. What a great man. Learned a lot from him. But he would tell me, he's like, because he was at Cincinnati too, and he'd be like, yeah, these smaller sports would come in wanting this travel, all this stuff. And I'd be like, did you win me a championship? And they'd be like, no. I'd be like, get out of here. I'm not giving you $1.5 million so you can take your softball team to the West Coast when you're not winning championships.
Right.
Win championships, maybe I'll send you.
We'll talk.
Interesting. Yeah, exactly. All right, listen, before we get on with this show to be heavy NFL, of course, just want to recognize my friend Chris Mortensen, who passed away of throat cancer. I got to meet Chris through an old producer friend of mine named Jason Godby. It was with 1010, but back when I had the Rumble. And Jason was gracious enough to introduce me to Mort. I've probably interviewed Mort, I don't know, over the radio, I don't know, half a dozen to a dozen times over the years. Whenever I saw him, he would spend time and say hi and just, nothing like we'd stand there for hours or nothing, but always gracious, always kind. I mean, even when, and I think back, I was thinking about it this morning, like when I was introduced to him, he was still, like, he was in his prime. He was like and he would always take time to come on my show. I mean, he would be, I was so, thankful for that. And then when you see him in person, And he's the same, just really, really kind and gracious. I can't think of two better words that describe him, at least from what I witnessed firsthand. Big part of the J Fund. We're going to miss him. He's there every year. I know him and Tommy Jackson are really tight. I know that whole crew, Berman, that Edwarder, they're all really tight. They come every year too to the golf tournament. So my thoughts and prayers are with those guys and with Mort's family and all his friends. But yeah, 72, man. I mean, me and my bro were talking. It's like, it's not old, but it's not young, but it's not old. 72 is not old. My dad was 75, man. I think about that a lot. Like, I thought maybe he was old, but that's not old, man. Not old at all, but thoughts and prayers to Mort. What's that?
Not in today's world.
No, right.
People live past 90 all the time.
Absolutely. No doubt, including my mother. God bless her. She's doing fantastic. But anyway, I wanted to get that off with Chris Mortensen, one of a kind. Haven't gained an angel. There's no doubt about that.
I grew up watching Mort.
Oh, yeah. The Mort Report, man. Come on. He was iconic. Iconic. And I didn't know he was such a prankster. I guess he was quite the prankster at ESPN, which is cool.
I feel kind of fortunate with my age because I feel like if I was maybe 4 to 5 years younger than I am, I would have missed the era of being able to enjoy all those TV icons, like the SportsCenter guys and and Berman and all those guys. Like, I am old enough to where when I was a kid, that was still the way you consumed your sports highlights and stuff.
Yep.
I think a little bit past me was when it was like, all right, we're watching social media, we're watching clips, whatever.
Yeah.
And not to say that those guys aren't being watched, though.
No, I know you're saying.
That age group does.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that I am at least old enough to be able to appreciate those guys.
I still put on SportsCenter. That's my go-to every morning. Like, my wife likes putting on the Today Show when she's like out of the room or done. I put on SportsCenter.
Yeah,
I just like hearing about all the sports going on.
It's like a reflex as a guy.
It is.
You just watch SportsCenter. That's what you do.
Watch SportsCenter. And back then, you're right. It meant something. It does today too, but it was different because you couldn't get them on your phone. You couldn't get them on it's only on the television. All right, before we get into it, I got a quick story to tell you. So I get a group text. I'm on this group text with my Boston College buddies. It's like 8 of us all played ball together. And one of my friends is telling a story, Texas story. He was in a sauna at his clubhouse, whatever, where he lives. And he's in there with a young kid or younger guy. And they start talking. And the kid tells him, I'm a D1 athlete. And my buddy's like, oh, great. Like, what sport? And he says, cheerleading. And my buddy's just like, I almost, like, just like could, but I asked this, like, do cheerleaders get recruited?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to call him a D1 athlete. You do have to be athletic. Listen, throwing a girl up in the air and grabbing her with one hand, I think you got to have some strength.
They're all pretty built.
Yeah, you got to have something. If you're tumbling, you got to be athletic.
The thing that's always been confusing to me that I've never understood how it works is, like, back to, like, you asking, like, if they get recruited. When you go to any high school game across the country, the cheerleaders are always all girls, right?
Yeah.
I rarely ever see guy cheerleaders.
Yeah. Well, I haven't been to a high school game in a while, but okay.
But then, you
college, yeah, for sure.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I know you haven't been to a high school game in a while, but, like, even back when you were going,
no,
it's all girls,
right?
But in college, male cheerleaders has been a thing for a long time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that happens. Like, I don't know where I don't know if they get recruited because I guess they're not cheering.
Well, maybe it's on their, part of their resume when they put it together for the schools, and that just gives them something extra, and then they try out for it.
Aren't a decent amount of college guy cheerleaders like ex-football players, like they played in high school?
I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't want to go off on a tag. I just found it funny. Like, you're thinking, like, soccer bat. Thinking cheer. Big defensive tackle friend of mine is just like, cheerleading. Okay. But how many, say the Florida cheerleading team, let's just say, how many guys try out for it? And how many guys are picked? I mean, do 100 show up?
That's a good question.
You know, did 20 show up? Did 10 show up? You know what I mean? I don't know. That's interesting. But, yeah, hey, listen, maybe they can get some NIL money, too, those cheerleaders. Why not? I say go for it. No doubt about it. All right, so franchise tag deadline, 4 o'clock today, Eastern. Looks like Ladarius Sneed got the non-exclusive tag. Mike Evans, he got paid, baby. That's huge. I know a lot of people now are like, oh, well, that's what, Ridley. I wouldn't pay Ridley that. I wouldn't. I think he's got to prove more. Mike Evans, he's going to go get you 1,010 touchdowns, no problem.
Mike Evans is a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer. So, you're going to have to be a little bit off that, but whatever. He sets the market. We'll see what happens. Broncos are going to cut Russell Wilson. They're going to owe him $39 million in straight cash, homie, this year. $39 million.
And the only reason that it's
phenomenal.
The only reason that it's that price is because they worked out a deal where they can split the dead cap between this year and next year.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be like $80 million.
Yeah.
But they're splitting it into 2 seasons.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
No doubt.
Paying someone $39 million to get lost is wild.
Smell you later. Here's $39 million.
Wild.
Okay. I think I'll take the week off or the year off.
Have you seen that Ed Orgeron clip when LSU fired him? He was like telling the story. They owed him like a ton of money. They owed him like $20 million or something.
Yeah.
Because they had won the national championship a couple years before that.
Yeah.
And he goes, which door do you want me to leave and when do you want me out, brother?
Yeah, especially when you know how that money's coming, man. Well, we'll see where they turn to. But the deadline today, 4 o'clock. Of course, we're all on. You go through Twitter. Holy cow, pins and needles. People are they're speculating. They're guessing. Balky's going to screw it all up. None of them. Look, I think at the minimum, Allen gets tagged. That's what's going to happen. There's no way he doesn't get something. Now, Ridley, I think you're gonna leave exposed. I think you're gonna, unless you get a deal with Josh. You know how I feel about it. I've said it many times. Get a deal done with Josh, tag Ridley, make him play another year, and then maybe go for it, after this next year. And maybe he will be worth the $35 million in guaranteed. It'll probably be up. But at the end of the day, you've got to secure Josh Allen. There's no way he's walking out of here. I can't believe Carolina with Brian Burns. Is that true? Like they just said, you're free to go? They didn't tag him or nothing? Brian Burns, the edge rusher out of Carolina?
I guess I haven't seen it.
Yeah, they're saying like you could like, that's not very smart. Maybe you don't want to pay him the tag. I don't know. Maybe work out a deal, and then who's going to trade for him, Supposedly there were teams that were willing to pay that. I don't know. Would you pay that for Josh Allen under a tag? If you were a team needing a pass rusher, would you trade for Josh Allen, knowing that he wants a big deal and it's going to cost you at least a first rounder? And on the other side, if you're the Jags, would you let him go?
Have to be a pretty premium pick for me.
Premium pick, high pick, and I think you still have to have his replacement. Maybe not in the draft. I'm not saying you got to draft an edge now or a D lineman, but you got to replace that. If you feel like Trayvon could he move over?
If the team that wants to make the deal is in the top like 10 to 15 of the draft, then I'd probably do it. I'd probably pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like back half of the first round, I don't believe so because I think Josh Allen is a first round caliber player.
Yeah.
Who has and I also think what matters is you're paying a little bit for past performance, but which in terms of the team means the proven commodity. Yeah. I know Josh Allen is what he is. If you draft a guy with a pick you get for that and he's a bust, you're getting fired.
Right. Well, look, I don't think many people, if any at all, thought Josh Allen was going to have the year he ended up having. 17 and a half sacks is a monster year.
That's true.
Prior to that, he was at what, 7, 6, 8, somewhere in that range, aside from his rookie year. I know everyone else was like, I knew it was going to happen. You didn't know it was going to happen. I'm glad for him. I think he's a very, very good all-around player. He can get pressure and he can play the run. So would I use a first rounder on him? If I needed one, I probably would. If that was my missing piece and I needed some pressure, they say Arizona would love to have him out there, and have him rush off the edge. If the Jags, I just got to make sure that I want a veteran that's going to at least fill some of that void. He may not be as good as Josh, but fill that void maybe 3/4, and then with a draft pick where another guy can fill the rest. I don't think it's going to happen. I think they tag him, they keep him, they work something out. But the other side of it is, okay, well, we drafted Trayvon number 1 overall, 3rd year. Can he replace Josh? Can he be the go-to guy on the left side? We flip him around, whatever, but can he be our number 1 guy? 10.5 sacks, plays great against the run, move him around. I'm not saying I'm advocating that, but you got to think those conversations happen in the building, right? Because they have to. They got to have continue. Hey, what if? What if we did trade Josh? What would we do? Somebody says, well, I feel really good about Trayvon Walker coming. He's going to be the guy. We need to add someone on the other side, and I'm not talking about what's in-house already. That's not good enough. And don't give me Abdullah. If they thought anything about him, he would have done some kind of snaps. We give a few off the bench, to see if he could do something. They don't believe in that kid, or maybe they don't think he's big enough. I don't know. But I need someone else. But those conversations definitely happen. My opinion.
Do you agree that with Josh Allen, it's obviously the big part of it is you want to re-sign him because he's a really good football player and he's really good for your team.
Yeah.
I also think that Josh Allen for the Jaguars represents something bigger than that, in my opinion. This franchise has had such a hard time with drafting and then retaining
and keeping
good talent.
Yep.
It doesn't happen. It has not happened with this team in a long time. How often does a first-round pick who is a success and is a good player ends up on a second contract with this football team?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It doesn't happen enough. And on better football teams, it happens more often.
Yeah, think of like Ramsey, Fournette, Telvin. He was fifth rounder, though. You can't go with that one. He was incredible.
It's been a while.
It's been a long time.
And even if we can think of one or two guys, it's been really few and far between in the last like 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
That's not acceptable, in my opinion. I believe that things happen, and like there are, obviously not every player you draft high, it's going to work out that way. I get that. But that needs to be your goal, that this guy is going to play really well on his rookie deal, prove that he's worth big money.
Yeah.
We sign him to what he has earned on the field.
Yep.
And then after that, he ends up being a Jaguar for a decade.
Right.
Better football teams with better run organizations, at least in the past. I like what we got going on now. Have that happen. The Ravens have this happen. The Steelers have this happen.
Yeah.
The Patriots had this happen for a long time.
For the most part.
Why? Josh Allen is a perfect opportunity. He's been loyal to Jacksonville. He's been outspoken about how much he loves being here in a lot of trying times when he could have been like, I hate this place.
Right. I just saw those 3 teams all had long time coaches.
Yeah.
We haven't. We've had a lot of turnover.
That's true.
You think about all that time. Those 3 coaches, they've been the coaches for decades.
That's true. And a lot of times when a contract is up, the coach that's in play and the GM that's in play, it's not their guy.
It's not their guy anymore.
That's true.
That's a fair point. That does factor in. But I agree. Look, I know this. Josh and Trayvon together are a good combination. And you watch them pregame, you watch them, and they want to dominate. They do. They both do. I feel like, and Josh getting paid, I think he'll want to prove that contract. You know what I mean? I think he'll want it even more. I think he'll want to show that he's every bit worth that contract. And I do think he takes pride in being a Jaguar. I do think he takes pride in watching what Walker can do on the other side. They need help on the inside. There's no doubt about that. But look, at the end of the day, I hope they can keep both of them. I really do. I don't want to see. I can't blame Ridley for wanting to go and get crazy money, because he'll probably get pretty crazy money. And good for him. Hey, you got to get it while you can, man. I'm sorry. And I know a tag is a big number. I know 17, 18 million is a huge, huge number. I get that side of it. Like, isn't that enough? But at the same time, you can't. You got to. And you work for the NFLPA. I mean, you're part of that union, man. You got to keep up, because it'll damage the value to someone else that's coming up behind you. Now, it doesn't mean you got to sign for the most, but you can't just be like, all right, I'll stay here for half, and help the team out. I guess you could, but I think a lot of receivers would be mad at you for doing that. I can't blame them for wanting that kind of money. And look, he could get hurt in the 1 year, get hurt anywhere. I mean, it can happen. So hopefully, I don't know. Maybe Balky's been working behind the doors and not giving you any information publicly, and maybe they have it all figured out and they're just waiting to the end. I don't know why you got to wait to the end.
And at 3:30 we get bombshells.
Man, again, at the minimum, he tags Josh Allen, right? And then leaves Calvin for open water and sees what happens with him.
I believe that's what's going to happen. I believe they're going to tag Allen, and then Ridley will get whatever, like you said, in open market, and then the Jags can decide at that point if that's a deal they're willing to match or if it's a deal that's too rich for him.
Yeah.
And I believe that there's a number there that where the right move is to let him walk. By the way, there's kind of this discourse on Twitter where it's like, if they let Ridley go, then that's unacceptable. And it's like,
it's not unacceptable.
There's a number where it makes more financial sense to let him walk.
I wouldn't pay him Mike Evans money.
No, he's not Mike Evans.
No, he's not Mike Evans. I wouldn't pay him that.
I'm
not overpaying him. But then now here's the thing. Now you got to, now I got to replace him. Now I got to either draft that or I got to find a free agent. I'm not, look, what's going to tick me off is that he warmed his career back up here for a year, and now he's off, kicking ass for somebody else. So I will put some blame on Balky for not securing him somehow. I don't know how, I don't know when exactly, but, I'm not overpaying. I mean, now you got to overpay for him, maybe. Maybe he's like, no, I want that money. I want Mike Evans' money. Maybe his agent's saying, hey, it's got to be close. $35 million guaranteed. Give me 33. I'll take a little less, but I need that bag. I need it now.
Depends on where he goes, if he does leave. But are we positive that he would go somewhere else and kick ass?
If they have a quarterback.
I was going to say, if he goes to the Chiefs, he's going to kick ass.
I think if he goes to most teams with a quarterback that can throw the ball, then they do throw the ball. Yeah, I think he'll at least match what he did here with Trevor. 8 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns. Yards, look, to me it's more yards per per catch, but it's really the touchdowns at the end of the day. How much are you helping me actually score? Now obviously you can set up with catches and whatnot, but I think with a quarterback that can throw even decently, yeah, he should be the go-to guy. I think there's something with him and Trevor in another year, though, man. And I hope he factors that in. You got. What's that?
Sorry to cut you off. What would you pay?
Okay. So if Evans is at 2 year, $52 million, that's 26 a year.
Yeah.
35 guaranteed, which is 17.5 a year. I'd probably give him around 21 a year, maybe 22 a year.
And then
just 2 years though. I'm not giving him some 4 or 5 year deal.
And then 15 a year guaranteed.
Yeah. He's got to be. I mean, come on. Let's be realistic. Like you said, you're not Mike Evans. We love you. We want to keep you. This is where our value's at. You can grow with Trevor. I mean, look, if you believe what they say, he's got to believe they're close to being a contender, right? I mean, if you believe what he says about Trevor, why would he want to leave that? Unless the money's just so far apart that he's like, come on, I mean, I'm not doing it for $5 million less. You know what I mean? I don't know. I don't want to put a number on it, but there may be a number where he's like, nah, I'm sorry. You got to come up at least some. You know what I mean? We don't know how that's going, but 2 year deal, lock him up for 2. Let's see what look. The window only lasts for so long. To be a contender, you can't be. It's hard to be a contender every single year. especially with, the money flying around and the cap goes up. So, that helps. But
so it's kind of interesting if you look at Spot Rack and look at the contracts right now and kind of like where the market is at for these positions.
Yeah.
When you look at edge, the edge market has some sorting out to do because Bosa reset the market and he's a mile ahead of everybody else.
Yeah.
But then after him, there's Montez Sweat type guys, like guys that I think Josh Allen's better than.
Yeah.
If you look at the receiver market, all the guys that would be ahead of kind of where we think Ridley will end up getting paid are head and shoulders better than him. The first guy where it's a debate is Christian Kirk.
Right.
Because ahead of him, it's Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp.
Right.
Like, now Mike Evans. Like, we were just talking about, Ridley's a good player. He's not those guys.
Right.
He is pretty inarguably at least a step below those guys. And it's not to say Ridley's not a really good receiver. Those are cream of the crop guys. Jamar Chase is going to be added into that category probably next offseason.
Yeah. Well, he's not Jamar Chase, but I'll say that this is how I look at Ridley. Out of the game for a year and a half, first year back, 8 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. There's no doubt he's got to clean up his game. No doubt. Making the catches, running the right routes, know what he's doing. So for me, the upside, because it's all about upside, right? You're not paying him for the 8 touchdowns this year. You're paying him what he could bring to the table. So I'm thinking he gets 12 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. You know what I mean? So he may not be out there in the, when you line them up, cream of the crop top. But you know what? For us and for Trevor in this offense, and he's producing like that, then it's worth it. Does that make sense? Because the value to my team compared to the value of, would I want Jamar Chase? Would I pay Jamar Chase Mike Evans money, if not a little more, all day long? All day. There would not even be a question about that.
He's better and younger.
Right. So, would I do that instead of keeping it? Of course you would. So I get what you're saying in that regard. I just feel like, you give up a third regardless. You had him for a year. He had a good year. Not a great year. Could have been a lot better. Was it worth it? And what is the worth? What's the worth if he walks out the door? What did you get? What'd you get? Other than giving up a third, what'd you get? Did my quarterback grow with him? My quarterback get better with him?
Not really.
Did you know what I mean? That's why I don't want him to walk. I feel like, look, you made a ballsy move to go get him, and everyone praised you for it, and rightfully so. Because everyone's like, wow. Because guess what? Next year, he's going to be one of the top guys on the market, right? We get him early. Great. But to not figure it out prior, I don't know. That's why I hope they get Josh done and then tag his ass and he's here for a year. And then we watch him do that 11 or 12 touchdowns, and then we pay his ass. And everyone will say, well, you get him cheaper this year. Well, guess what? The cap goes up every year, so that kind of washes out.
Well, it doesn't. It's
to a certain degree.
When you pay early, you do end up with some savings, particularly those early years of the contract, assuming the cap goes up.
Especially with the cap.
But if it's like a 4-year deal or longer, which I don't think Ridley would get that anyways, but when the deal is that long and the cap goes up that much, the player's eventually going to hold out and say, we got to renegotiate this if they're still performing at a really high level. So it's not even like it matters all that much. Like Patrick Mahomes has this 10-year deal.
Right.
You think he's going to play on that exact deal entirely through the contract? Hell no.
No.
Hell no. They're probably already renegotiating.
Yeah.
So I just think the savings can help in the short term.
Right. They help with the cap because that big bonus gets cut in half and that whole number doesn't count that first year.
And it is true that you will probably end up saving money in the first few years of the deal.
Yep.
So if you believe that your team is in win now, let's go get a ring right now mode, then it does make sense because you save the money on the cap, like you said, and it gives you a little bit of a window to try to go get a couple other pieces.
Would you have paid Josh Allen last year?
I would not have because I didn't see enough.
No, he didn't show enough. I'm not going to guess. I mean, I'm glad he had a big year, but he didn't have a big year 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
That's the other part of it is we always talk
vanished a lot.
That's the other part of this is we always talk about in principle paying a guy early, paying him late, whatever. But it's a case-by-case thing because it's a player-by-player thing. How did they perform on the field? That's what ultimately matters.
Correct.
If Josh Allen had the season he had this past year in 2022, you bet your ass he'd already been paid.
Right. No,
of course he would have been.
Absolutely.
Because he'd have established himself as
even
one of
if
the
it
best,
was just 13 sacks.
100%. Because he'd have established himself as one of the best edge rushers in football.
Right.
When a year ago today, what did we say all the time on this podcast?
Yep.
Man, he'll have this incredible game and then he'll disappear for 5 weeks.
Right.
And you can't pay a guy big money that's going to disappear for a month out of the season at a time.
This past year, he didn't disappear at all.
Correct.
He was a menace pretty much every game.
And he earned his money, so he should get it.
I agree.
I don't think it's got to be that difficult.
No. Well, again, then it becomes the same. What does he think his value is? Is he Bosa? I mean, what if him and his agent say, you know what? I'm okay. Maybe I'm not Bosa, but I'm pretty damn close.
If Bosa gets 34 a year, I want 32.
Yeah. And by the way, the Sweat's at 24.5 or something like that. You got TJ Watt at 28, but he did his deal like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. So if he redid his deal, he would go over Bosa, right? Myles Garrett.
Probably, yeah.
Myles Garrett. I mean, they would get him just because it's a year. Inflation. They get more. They get more. A little.
Yeah, you're right.
Whatever that number is, I don't know what that is. Myles Garrett, same deal. What do you think he would want? He'd be like, hey, man, I'm just as good as Nick Bosa. I did my deal even before T.J. Watt at 25
I just won
a year.
Defensive Player of the Year.
And so what am I worth?
That's what I was saying a minute ago. Like, the edge market has there's some chips that need to fall, and Josh Allen being one of them.
Yeah.
That need to kind of reestablish that market, because that market makes no sense, right? You can't go look at the top guys and make any sense of it right now. Because, like you said, J.J. Watt's going to be due for a new deal. Myles Garrett's going to be due for a new deal. Josh Allen's due for a new deal. And then Nick Bosa's got his deal, but he's the only one. So there's
and he just got it, too. So
there's this ocean right now between Bosa and everybody else. Yeah. And we all know Bosa's that good.
Yeah.
So his contract doesn't tell us a ton right now, because there's guys that need to fall in between where he's at and where, like, the Montez Sweats of the world are.
I don't know if there will be. Maybe Danielle Hunter. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because those guys they'll probably go above Bosa just because it's a year later.
With the cap doing what it just did, you're probably right.
I would think. So
then it becomes, in a year or two, does Bosa say, let's renegotiate?
Yeah, he could.
That's how the game works. We know how this works.
For the top guys.
Which is why we were saying a minute ago, like, paying a guy early will probably save you money in the short term.
Yeah.
But in the long term, if they're still if they're outperforming that contract, they are going to want to renegotiate the contract. Players know about, give or take, what percentage of the cap they need to be taking up, and that's what they go off of.
Yep.
So you're not, when the cap raises and all that's, like we were saying a minute ago, it doesn't make a huge difference competitively what you can and can't do.
Most players look at other players and say, I'm as good as him. I should be paid like him.
Right.
Or, you know what, he is better than me, but he's not. I'm better than him, who's getting paid this much, and he's getting paid that much. Pay me this, right? And maybe I want a little bit more.
Yeah.
Then the question comes down, do you pay Josh Allen $32 million a year for 5 years and give him $100 million in guaranteed or whatever? I would, and I think most owners, unless they're cheapskate, well, I don't think they are. They want to pay a guy that earns it. Like you know what I mean? He's happy to pay this kid. Like when Shad Khan does that deal, he's going to be like, you know what? This is great. You're going to be a Jaguar for a long time. You'll probably retire here. Here's a big deal. You earned it. I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you and your family. This is more money than you'll ever know. This is life-changing forever. And not just for you and your family, but even beyond. That makes owners feel good.
Well, and it verifies that the investment you made, if they were a high draft pick, was worth it.
Right.
If they get that second contract with your team, that means they played their ass off in that rookie deal, and you got yourself a cornerstone of your franchise.
Yeah.
Is Josh Allen a cornerstone of this franchise? Hell yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
Which is why, again, like we were talking about earlier, Ridley's different. There's different things with Ridley.
Ridley's been here 1 year,
He's been here a year. He wasn't a Jaguar draft pick. I'd love to keep him, but it's not the same. Josh Allen, it's like I was saying at the beginning of the podcast, like keeping him as a player is the most important thing.
Yeah.
But he represents something bigger than that in my opinion.
Yeah. And again, if you let these guys go, you got to replace them. So however you're going to do that, right? And I don't want either one of them to go. And they're going to get, unless both of them stay, they're going to get killed on social media anyway. But who cares? Most of those people don't even know what the hell they're talking about most of the time. They're guessing. But I just, again, if Ridley goes after 1 year, I'm not going to be happy. Here's a nice little trio. How about get Josh Allen signed to a long-term deal, tag Ridley, go sign Christian Wilkins from Miami and solidify the defense. Get rid of Foley Fatukasi yesterday, save $3.5 million. I know everyone said, well, it's on his birthday. Look, man, they got to do it at some point. I don't know. Look, when the guy was healthy, he was good, but he wasn't healthy enough. You just couldn't take the risk any longer. You just can't sometimes. If you're not prone, but just injuries happen, and I'm counting on you. After a couple of years, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it again. We don't know if you'll stay healthy. It's a big what if. So I understand them letting them go. You still need to add. Don't give me Hamilton. Don't. He's got a lot to prove. You need some more beef up there.
I didn't think the savings made sense to cut Fatukasi.
Yeah, it's just $3.5 million. I think they saved.
He was going to be 12 on the books.
Yeah.
And they're paying him $9 in dead money now.
Yeah,
they paid him $9 million to get lost. And I totally agree with you. I
think they're doing that to save up to go after somebody. I don't think you do that just because you're not happy with them. You know what I mean?
The $3 million is like you're probably right. I'm sure they've got something in mind. They didn't do it for no reason, but
yeah.
Or maybe Ryan Nielsen came in and said, this guy, I don't like this guy.
No, he's not my kind of guy. Maybe he's not my kind of player. And again, the injuries, they just factor in, and it's tough to invest when that happens. But I'd like a Christian Wilkins, a Leonard Williams, somebody beastly like that on the inside. Which will only help our outside guys. Got to add to the outside as well. Maybe that's draft. Maybe that's free agency on the lower tier. Obviously, you can't go after all big guys and pay everybody big money. You'll run out of money for the year. So they'll have to factor that in. But good thing with, like you said, when you sign a big deal, that first year, the cap number shouldn't be too exorbitant. Maybe year 3, 4, 5, whatever. Then it gets to be like Russell Wilson owing him $39 million in cash.
Well, like Christian Kirk's deal
later.
Like Christian Kirk's deal, for example, is like getting expensive now.
Yeah, right.
Because first couple
Sheriff's
years
deal's expensive right now. He's at like 22, 23 mil. That's
crazy expensive.
I wouldn't pay him that.
No.
I'm sorry. He just did not have the year that, again, I don't want to take anyone's money, but that's a savings right there. I'd go younger. I'd probably go younger there. But if you're going to keep Fortner, I don't think you keep Sheriff. I don't know.
I agree with all of that. Younger. But it sounds like, based on what Balky and Doug said at the Combine,
they're keeping it intact.
It sounds like they're bringing the same band back together, man.
Didn't we learn our lesson? Learn our lesson? You thought we learned our lesson. Unbelievable. I don't know. You run it back with the same old line, you're going to have to really show me, because I am not going to be excited about that whatsoever.
I've said, I don't know if I've said on this podcast, but I said it on my podcast with Dylan Denmark that I'll get rid of 4 of the linemen from last year.
Yeah.
If it was up to me, the only guy I'm keeping is Anton Harrison.
Yeah.
But Cam Robinson, you save a ton of money letting him walk. Ezra Cleveland didn't impress me. Luke Fortner, in my opinion, can't play at this level as a starting center. And Brandon Scherf costs too much money, and he's injured and he's old.
Yep. No, I agree.
I get the sentiment that, do you want to be having all these brand new pieces on the line instead of having continuity? I understand that.
Yep.
But my opinion is they weren't good when they played.
No, I know.
I'm willing to blow it up because I've watched this. I will take my chances on new blood and seeing what they can show me with draft picks and free agency and whatever, versus running it back with the same guys that I just watched not be able to play.
No, right. Look, I don't think they're going to do anything with Fortner, so they are going to get a guard. I think they'll get a guard. If Cam comes back, Anton, and then Walker Little, that's your trio. Anton would be my lead. But probably at right tackle if Cam's going to come back, and what they do with that money. Do they make savings on that money? So a lot to go on. Hopefully by 4 o'clock, we'll know probably sooner what happens with our Jacksonville Jaguars. I have to go, though. It's been a pleasure each and every Tuesday and Friday right here from 1010XL Studios, brought to you by Team Tommy Mac. Hey, just some local businesses, regional businesses that help you. They do it right every single time. Chris Lucero's Bail Bonds, J-Dog Junk Removal and Hauling, Code Ninjas, parents, a great spot for camps this summer for your kids. Carpet Man Flooring, more than just LVP. Azar Sausage, the best in town. Solomon Ventures, man, it is an adventure when you go shopping there. All kind of home goods, indoor and out, for less than wholesale prices. Graffiti Burger Bar, a great place to watch games and eat some great food. Michael Nickus, State Farm, been my State Farm agent forever. The guy does it all. Man, he is absolutely fantastic. And Beach Life Rentals, all up and down Northeast Florida's coast for all types of rentals, including a room at the Sultan Inn and Suites, great boutique hotel in Atlantic Beach. Want to thank them all for all the great support. Thank all of you for checking it out. Go Jags, man. Hopefully they get them both done today, and we can celebrate a little bit tonight. Y'all have a great day. Until next time, stay safe and be cool out there. We'll see you right here on Catching Up with Tommy Mack. Peace.